Hey guys, today we're going to install a Lego DEI battle unit to a Heng Long 7.0 tank fresh out of the box. The reason you want to do this is because the Lego DEI is an inexpensive but upgraded way to receive hits that can be played in sunlight and has good sensor range. When you use the stock Heng Long 7.0 or similar mushroom, these are not shaded, so when you're in direct sunlight, the performance of this degrades greatly. Not only that, but the actual receiver is not a very capable one, so you might be confined to battling over short distances, whereas something like this can track and receive hits from very far away, making the battles a lot more interesting and less frustrating for other players. The added bonus to this is through some creative wiring, it does offer flashing lights to indicate your hit. The Lego DEIs are not plug and play. There is some work required to install it, but not too bad. You'll see that there's 5 pins here, and the stock Heng Long receiver is a 3-pin. So the 3-pin is going to consist of a positive wire, a ground wire or negative, and then a signal wire. The Lego DEI has that too, but in addition has 2 more ports or 2 more terminals, and that is going to be for the LED functions, which is a positive and a negative. What we're going to end up doing is connecting these to the Heng Long board through the hull, and then it should light up and function when it takes a hit. So I have this cable kit that I developed that should make things a little bit easier. Everything's going to be pretty much plug and play. It's all about just opening up your tank and routing the wires at that point. Typically when you order this from Lego DEI on Etsy, it would normally come with some wiring just like this. This is pretty much a universal type setup. The only thing is you have to kind of figure out and know exactly where each plug should go, but otherwise it should plug into the terminals on the Heng Long board. It's going to be a 5 terminals. 2 would go on to the LED port and then 3 to the IR receive port. With my cable kit here, it's going to match the plugs exactly, so you'll know exactly where it goes. Also included is a little jumper cable. You can also use a little 2.54 mil jumper here. It's going to go in CN port number 6. This is going to eliminate the Airsoft micro switch, and basically you'll be able to fire right away with this, no delay. It skips the Airsoft cannon entirely. This is purely optional, but keep in mind that if you run with this setup and delete the Airsoft cannon, you will be expected to delay your shots by about 6 seconds, so that way there's a fair chance for other players. Otherwise you just have unlimited shooting ability, which is unfair. This cable is a 5-pin JST XH 5.4 on one side, and it will connect to the Lego DEI unit. It's important to note there's 2 types of Lego DEI units out there. One is for the Clark and Tamiya style boards, and the other is for the Heng Long, which it will actually say it on there. Make sure you get the right one. So the cable that I've had made for our hobby is 5-pin JST XH 2.54 on one side, which will line up perfectly with this guy. So it'll split off to one of the connectors being a JST PH 2.0, which is what the IR receiver port is. It goes into CN16. And then this will go, this is a DuPont 2.54, kind of a short version, but essentially that's what it is. It's going to go onto the LED port number 4, which is normally your headlights, but you're going to swap that function to this guy. And the reason you're doing that is to get the flashing lights, you're going to use the headlight function, which is going to flash whenever you receive a hit. So that's what it's going to look like with these 2 items installed, not counting the other cables that go to the other functions of your tank. So we're going to be opening up the tank and then essentially plugging these in and then routing this plug in a way that it pops out of the turret so that you can mount the receiver on top here. Alright, today's tank on the table is going to be a Heng Long KV-2 Sorry, I don't have a huge setup or space to work here, so it's going to be a little bit zoomed in so you don't see a lot of other stuff. Essentially, most Heng Long tanks will be 4 or 6 screws at the bottom, and sometimes there might be an extra screw or two that is behind the tread on the fender somewhere. On the KV-2 here, it's going to be 4 screws. This KV is going to be used in our club battles as a loaner. This is a tank I'm donating to the Irvine Tank Club, so I'm going to convert it to our battle standards real quick. All right, 4 screws, and then the hull pops off. Be very careful when you do it, because sometimes you have to angle it or what have you. Every tank's different, so generally just lift and then carefully peek before you do anything. So generally you're going to be playing a little game of peekaboo, because the wires are as short as they can possibly be, so that you can avoid having wires tangle up. So per your Heng Long manual or paperwork, it should tell you what is what on the board, but I'll tell you anyway. CN10 is your airsoft cannon. That's the actual motor that shoots the airsoft gun. These 2 blue wires here, this is CN11. That is the heater for the smoke unit. CN12 is the blower fan for the smoke unit. CN15, that is the actual IR emitter bulb. CN16, that's the one we're changing out today, is the IR receive. Skip these 2 here, and then you come down to CN9, that is the speaker. And then come down again to these LED ports. You'll see number 4 and number 5. Number 4 should be headlights, 5 is machine gun. And then this double yellow wire here is CN number 6. That's the micro switch for the airsoft. Then coming over here, CN3, that's the turret rotation. And CN4 is the turret elevation. So the first thing we're going to do is probably unplug all this. And if you're not sure, just remember to jot it down or take a picture so it goes back the same way when you do it. If you have a Heng Long with a 360-degree enabled turret, it might have an extra connector that these all lead up to, and then one big connector that you can disconnect all in one go. So my goal right now is to remove the cables and separate the upper hull so I can take off the turret and then run my cables through it. Since these are all attached together and zip tied, I'm just going to remove everything. I should say everything except what is tied to the lower hull, which would be the smoke unit. I just removed extra for no reason now. So really the speaker and the smoke unit should stay connected. Usually have about 2 or 3 screws. On the bigger tanks with the larger turret ring like King Tiger, you might have up to 5 screws. Then you have this little clip here that keeps the wires from getting tangled. This is a 320 or 340 degree turret, so with this part solid here, it can only rotate almost all the way, but not complete 360. If you have a 360 turret, you might have something called a slip ring, which allows the wires to twist and turn around as much as you want without getting tangled. If you try to do 360 turn with this wire setup, you'll eventually end up yanking all the connections out. So I'm gonna free these wires because I need to get into the turret and work on that. These screws are all threaded into the plastic, so you want to be very careful when you're tightening them not to over tighten or you'll strip the plastic holes. Just hand tight or just short of that is enough. Okay, here's the problem. The turret motor wire is also zip tied in there. So I need to free this zip tie. Then you have your machine gun and headlight LED here. Okay, we're ready to go. The turret is out now, so I'm going to take it apart. Turrets are all screwed in from the bottom somewhere, so you got maybe 4, maybe 6, maybe more screws. Just take your time with that. Today we're just going to leave the airsoft cannon in, and I'm just going to disable it by using that jumper that I mentioned. Okay. Alright, inside the KV-2 is a very spacious turret, but the components are pretty much the same as other Heng Long tanks. This is the elevation motor, which is red and blue wire, which is this guy. Now, some Heng Longs will have something called a daughter board, where all these wires meet up to another board that connects inside here. So every component plugs into there and then comes out. Some motors for the elevation might actually be in the back here, like some of the Panzers or tanks with the smaller turrets. And then you'll see where the port for the IR receiver meets a connector here. So we're gonna have to modify this by making a bigger hole so that we can run our new plug out there. Typically, to remove the elevation motor, it's 3 screws, and we're gonna have to do that to get to where the port is for the IR receiver. So we're gonna modify that location. So that's up and out of the way. You'll see that the ports right here are actually gonna take this out. Looks like for this one's going to be pretty simple. I'm just going to kind of shove this through there. So now the 2 separate plugs are down there. It's going to leave me with some excess hanging here. And so something like that. I'll probably hot glue this in place on the sides or something so that it doesn't move around. Or what I could do or should do is put an extension piece so this sits about yay high. So this is where it's going to be different for everybody. You're going to have to come up with your own little way to suspend this a bit. The reason is you don't want to block the IR receiver with any details from your tank. So I took this random piece of plastic I had laying around, just kind of crafted my own kind of spacer, and then I put tape around it to give it some girth so that it can just fit the hatch a little bit better. Then I'm going to plug in my receiver, but here's the thing, I don't remember what cable is which side. So this part, if you get it wrong, you can always reverse it. You'll find out once you get it all plugged in and tested. So like this, it's gonna sit on there at a good height for everyone to shoot at. Now I am going to install the elevation motor. This kind of arm here is going to go into the slots of the airsoft cannon. You can't see it, but it's going to be kind of a channel that put it in. Now when you put everything back together, don't pinch any wires. Don't get it caught in the way when the cannon's being elevated or whatever. Just make sure nothing gets pinched. So for the sake of cleanliness, I could just zip tie it with the rest of the bundle here so that they can hang out together. There's many ways you can cable manage if you're very particular about that. This is where you can get pretty creative. Use cable ties. Continuing on, install the jumper pin to CN16, and then we're gonna reattach the turret to the upper hull, and then the hull on the upper hull onto the lower hull. Okay, time to reattach the cables from the hull. White and black was headlight. I'm not using it anymore, or I could just plug it to the tail light port, which is 3 if I wanted to. Red black is machine gun on port 5. Battle unit LED is gonna go to port 4. Battle cable CN16. Okay, assembled. So you'll turn it on. First thing you'll see is flashing, just like your headlights would do. That's a good sign. If you have it the other way around by accident, it'll just turn on as a solid because the ports are plugged into the wrong terminals. So it's not blinking, it's getting constant power, it's the wrong port. So just flip it around. So now we're going to test that it works completely. So I have my little remote tester that'll simulate a shot. Turn on the tank. The headlight is on, so I'll just turn that off. And then I'm going to simulate a hit with my little device here. Also now with the jumper cable in the micro switch port and the airsoft cannon disabled, I can fire pretty quickly. There's still a slight delay, but to keep it fair for club rules, delay your shot 6 seconds. Everything still works. The emit function still works. Machine gun I plugged into the headlight port. Oops. Okay. Alright. This one's ready to go. And that's pretty much it.